Thandeka's heart raced as the two figures slowly approached. Their presence was suffocating, like the air itself had turned to stone. She took a step back, her thoughts frantic. There was no way out. One of the figures, taller and broad-shouldered, spoke first. His voice was low and menacing. "We warned you, Sister Thandeka. Some doors should remain closed, but now that you've chosen to open them, we must act." Thandeka glanced over her shoulder, her eyes darting around, looking for a way to escape. They were here to silence her. Everything Father Langa had told her was true. The church wasn't protecting her, it was controlling her, and now they were coming to collect their due. But she wasn't powerless. She felt the energy stirring within her, the gift she had been blessed or cursed with. Her fingers tingled as the familiar warmth of her powers flickered through her veins, waiting to be called upon. The second figure, shorter but equally menacing, raised his hand, signaling the other to stop. "Wait," he hissed, his voice filled with quiet command. "Let's see if she'll come willingly." Thandeka's heart pounded as she met their gaze. They thought she would surrender, that she would kneel before them, bound by the chains of the church. But they were wrong. She took a deep breath, summoning her powers. Light erupted from her palms, bright and blinding. The figures recoiled, covering their eyes, but Thandeka didn't wait for them to recover. She turned and ran, her feet pounding against the dirt path as she fled into the surrounding forest. Behind her, she heard their shouts of rage and the sound of their pursuit, but she didn't look back. The trees closed in around her as the branches scratched at her arms and face. But she kept moving, her breath coming in wretched gasps. She had to find Father Langa. Thandeka's legs burned and her lungs ached by the time she reached the hidden chapel, a small secluded place deep within the woods. It had been abandoned for years, used only occasionally by traveling priests or pilgrims seeking solitude. Tonight, it would serve as her sanctuary. She pushed open the door, her heart still racing as she stepped inside. The air cool and still, the scent of aged wood and dried herbs lingering in the small place. It was quiet, safe, for now. Thandeka sank to her knees, her chest heaving as she struggled to catch her breath. The events of the past days weighed heavily on her, each revelation more horrifying than the last. Sister Zandela's betrayal, the hidden journal, the order of the Purifiers, everything she had believed was falling apart. One person she knew she could trust, Father Langa. She reached into her robes, pulling out the journal she had taken from the archives. Its worn pages held the answers she needed. The truth about her powers, about the order, but she couldn't decipher it alone. Suddenly the door creaked open. Thandeka's body tensed as she spun around, her powers ready to strike, but then she saw him, Father Langa. "Sister Thandeka," he said softly, stepping inside and closing the door behind him. His face was filled with concern, his eyes scanning her for injuries. "I feared you wouldn't make it." Thandeka swallowed hard, her throat dry. "They tried to stop me, the ones from the order." Father Langa nodded solemnly. "They are watching every move you make. They've been waiting for this moment. But we don't have much time. You need to understand the full extent of what they're planning." He motioned for her to sit, and she did, laying the journal between them. The flickering candlelight cast shadows on their faces as they studied the book together. Father Langa's eyes darkened as he flipped through the journal's pages, stopping at an entry that had been written in a hurried, shaky hand. He glanced at Thandeka before reading aloud. There are those among us, born with gifts from beyond. They walk in the light, but the church fears their power. The purifiers will rise again, and when they do, the balance between good and evil will shift. The one who possesses the light will be our salvation or our destruction. Thandeka felt a chill crawl down her spine. The one who possesses the light. Was that her? Father Langa closed the journal and looked at her, his expression grave. The church has known about people like you for centuries, sister. They call you the gifted, but to them, you are not a gift, you are a threat. They've manipulated those with powers for years, using them for their own purposes. And now, with the rise of the Purifiers, they believe you are the key to maintaining their control. Thandeka's heart raced as she processed his words. But why? Why are they so afraid of us? Because they know your power could upset the balance, Father Langa explained. If people like you were allowed to use your gifts freely, the church would lose its influence. They see you as a weapon, something to be controlled or destroyed if necessary. Thandeka clenched his fists. I'm not a weapon. I never asked for this. Father Langa nodded. I know, but the order doesn't care about what you want. They care about keeping the church's power intact. And they'll do whatever it takes to ensure that happens. Thandeka's mind spun. She had always believed that her powers were a blessing, something given to her by God to help others. But now, it seemed like her very existence was a threat to the institution she had dedicated her life to. What do I do? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Father Langa was silent for a moment, his eyes filled with compassion. You have a choice, Thandeka. You can run, flee the church and live in hiding, where they can't find you. Or, he hesitated, his voice dropping lower. Or you can fight. You can stand against the order and expose the truth. Thandeka's pulse quickened. Fight? She had never thought of herself as a fighter, but now, with the weight of everything she had uncovered, the thought of running felt impossible. They'll come for me either way, she said quietly. If I run, they'll find me. If I stay, at least I can fight back. Father Langa smiled sadly. I had a feeling you'd say that. Father Langa leaned forward, his voice barely above a whisper. The order of the Purifiers is not just in our monastery. They have agents throughout the church, watching and waiting. But there are others like me, priests, nuns, even lay people who know the truth. We've been gathering information, building a network, but we need someone like you, someone with power to help lead the way. Thandeka felt a surge of resolve rising in her chest. For so long, she had been unsure of her place, her purpose. But now things were coming clearer. She wasn't just another nun in the monastery. She was the key to bringing down the order. What do we do first? She asked, her voice firm. Father Langa nodded. We need to expose the truth. The journal is proof of the order's corruption, but it's not enough. We need more evidence, more witnesses. There are people in the church who have been silenced, hidden away, who know the full extent of the order's reach. We'll need to find them. Thandeka took a deep breath, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. And then? Father Langa's expression darkened. Then we take the fight to them. Just as Father Langa finished speaking, a sudden noise outside the chapel broke the stillness. Thandeka's eyes widened in alarm as she turned toward the door. "They have found us," Father Langa said grimly, standing up quickly. Thandeka's heart raced as she peered through the narrow window. Figures were moving through the forest, their dark robes blending with the shadows. The order had followed her. They were not safe here. "We have to go now," Father Langa urged, grabbing the journal and stuffing it into his robes. "We can't let them catch us." Thandeka nodded, her hands trembling slightly as she prepared to flee once more. But this time, she wasn't just running for herself. She was running for the truth.